Hi. Sorry, I was trying to like figure things out. Oh my gosh. So I'm learning so much about the technological things that we need to do. So sorry about that, friends. Oh my gosh. Hi everybody. How's everybody doing today? All right. So we have so much to talk about today. First of all, did you guys feel this energy today? Holy manoli. It has been insane today. Okay, so I'm in Los Angeles. The eclipse energy started at like 8:30 this morning, and then it went on, and it went to it, and then it ended at it was full around like 10:30 or something, and then it ended 12:30, I believe, something like that. And right after it ended, I was like, I have to go to sleep. So I went to sleep for a little while. Whoop-de-doo, you know. I mean, it was kind of, that was craziness. So, and you know what? I don't know if it's just the eclipse energy because, we've got all these planets lined up. Then we've got that meteor shower happening and new moon. I mean, everything happening, right? So I figured this is such a great time to have this conversation. So I'm super excited that everybody's here. Hello. Hi, Frank. Nice to see you. Okay, so get out your journals or paper, pen, all of it. You're gonna want to write some of this stuff down. But what's great is on my Patreon, you're gonna be able to see this again. So like it will be there, like you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to, yeah, deal with it. So yeah. Now, I think that there might be a lot of questions about why we secretly love our old stories. Like, why would I name this live that? Here's the question that I think most people are having here. What exactly do I mean by old stories? What does that mean? I'm actually talking about those old sort of bully type stories that we tell ourselves. Yeah, and I said the word bully kind of on purpose because I have to tell you, we bully ourselves. Think that through. We do. I wouldn't say always, but why do we love these dumb stories that we tell ourselves? Why do we love them? Because apparently, our brains have a really strange idea of comfort. You know what I'm saying? I mean, seriously, I think honestly that is part of the problem. Our brains are wired. We're humans. We're humans. Okay, so what do these stories mean? What are these stories? What am I talking about? Okay, these are the stories that I'm talking. Hey, Keith, nice to see you. So glad you're here. This is kind of so Keith was on my circle last night, and we got into this a little bit, but kind of going into more depth tonight. So yay. What are these stories? What do they mean? Okay, these stories that I'm talking about that are kind of bullying stories are, I always screw things up. Okay, that would be example number one. Number two, I'm just not good at relationships. That could be another story that we tell ourselves, right? Or another one that I think is hilarious is things never work out for me. We tell ourselves versions of these all the time. Okay? And the last example that I'm going to give you is this, right? And it might sound strange, but this is one that I've been dealing with, okay? And I'll tell you the whole story in a few minutes. But this last example is, God, I'm an idiot. Even this little tiny happy medium says things like this to myself, right? I mean, it's so silly, but it's real, So here's the thought about this. Sometimes We don't believe a thought because it's true. We believe it because we've practiced thinking it. Okay? Do you know how many thoughts we have during the day? Between 60 and 80,000 thoughts every day. Yep. And I know that sounds like I'm lying, but I promise you I'm not. You know? I mean, it's crazy. Aw. Keith, you're just so sweet. Thank you so much. That's very nice of you, right? But my point is that we believe these terrible thoughts, these sentences, these stories we tell ourselves because we've heard them before. We've said them to ourselves before. Okay? Now, here's a good question to ask yourself. What's a story about yourself that you've said to yourself so many times that it feels like it's a fact? Good question, right? Now, feel free to like answer in the chat. I get this is like a very sort of personal type conversation. So if you don't want to put anything in the chat, I totally get it, right? All right. What's a story that you tell yourself, that you've said to yourself so many times that it feels true? Okay? Now, it could be guys or girls always leave me. It could be I screw things up all the time. Or something I've been dealing with, I'm too old. Seriously. I think that to myself sometime and I think, Lauri, stop it. Right? Or to get a little bit more dark or sinister, you might think to yourself, I'm too fat to be loved. Or things never work out for me. Okay? So those are like dramatic ones. I get that. Okay? But they are examples of the stories that we tell ourselves. Those sentences that mean so much. And unfortunately, they're stories. Okay? So these are the deep thoughts that we usually keep to ourselves. Okay? The question is about this. Why do these thoughts sometimes feel safe? Interesting. Isn't that an interesting thought? So when I say to myself, I'm old, right? Why does that feel safe to me? Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes. Well, these stories might feel safe because they keep us from getting hurt in some way. Okay? Like if I say, I'm too old to, making this up, I'm too old to ride a horse. That's silly. That allows me to not have to move out of my comfort zone. Okay? I hope that this is making sense. Keith says, I am overthinking all the time. Yes. I am not the strongest person and I'm weak. That is such a story. That is the really great example of a story, Keith. That is now I hope you can stay till sort of at least towards the end because I'm going to talk about how we maneuver through this. All right? So, getting out of your comfort zone, feeling safe, whatever. Where exactly is this coming from? All of these weird thoughts. They're coming from a place of fear. Isn't that interesting? It's coming from a place of fear. So, interestingly, consider this thought process. All right? Because it's a process, okay? So, I'm going to use my latest thing, I shouldn't say my latest thing, but this thing that has been happening to me the last couple of weeks. This story is, I'm an idiot. Like, I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud, right? Okay, you can watch the replay. Thanks, Keith. All right. So, I'm using the term, I'm an idiot, or the thought, right? So, that's the thought, right? So, if I keep saying this to myself, That is sort of the repetition. Okay. And then anytime anything happens, I go back to that. I don't, but I could go back to that of I'm an idiot and have it be a pattern. Right? So once it becomes a pattern, then it kind of becomes an automatic thought. Okay? So eventually, we don't even realize that we're telling ourselves these stories. Okay? And that is like I can't tell you how that is. I mean, I can't even tell you how telling ourselves this, catching it, is so important, right? So sometimes these stories are kind of protecting us, you know? Like if I believe I'm not good at this, whatever it is, I don't have a risk of failing, right? So in a sense, it becomes kind of a protection thing. You don't have to risk failing at anything, okay? If I believe people will always disappoint me, I don't have to risk trusting anybody. Okay? Right? Do you see where I'm going with this? Now, here's a question that you might want to write down and ask yourself later. Okay? What does one of your old stories allow you not to do? What is that? You know, like I'm making this up again. I'm too old to ride a horse. So I then don't have to worry about whatever it is regarding the horse. Like, am I going to hurt it because I'm, because I don't know how to ride it or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? But then you think to yourself, what might that story be protecting you from? Very interesting thoughts on this. Okay. Now, here's the cool part. How do you figure out the story? How do you figure it out? How do you figure out if you're using a story, what your story is, all of that, right? Now, here's the thing. If you're using any of the following words, you're getting close to figuring out what your story is. All right? And these words would be, I always blah, blah, blah. I never blah, blah, blah. Right? Or can't. I can't do that. I can't do that. I should or shouldn't. I'm just. That's just who I am. All of those. You might want to start noticing which one of those that you use. Okay? Love the talking, and it makes me look at things different things. I tell myself, yeah, that's the whole point. We don't even realize that we're doing this. Sometimes. Okay? Now, let me tell you my story. Oh, well, actually, let me say this first. The first step isn't to change the story, which we're going to get to in a minute, but the first step is actually catching it. Okay? So when you have your story, do you notice that you say it to yourself? That's difficult to do. Okay? So here's the point. This is what I want to say about this. Once we make the distinction between what happened and what we decided that it meant, then we can start to analyze it. Okay? So this is the important part. This is kind of the important sort of thing that we're saying here. I'm going to say it again. Once we make the distinction between what actually just happened and what we decided that it meant, then we can start to sort of analyze it. Okay? So now, what happened? I made a mistake. I made a mistake in something. What was my story? I'm an idiot. So this is my story, right? About, 3 weeks ago or so, I signed something on the wrong line. It's just a silly mistake, right? But so that's what happened. However, I said to myself, oh, Lauri, you're such an idiot. And then I stood back and I went, Lauri, you know better than that. You don't call yourself an idiot, because I know, because I've been doing this work a long time, right? So I was like, Lauri, I can't believe you just said that to yourself. And then I'm like, I'm not an idiot. I am strong. I am powerful. So then I'm going through all these like affirmations to like get rid of that thought process, right? But then guess what? It happened again. I did something like a small mistake. Oh, you're an idiot. Stop saying that. So now I think I've done it a total of, if I'm thinking correctly, I did it maybe a total of like 3 times over the course of a couple of weeks. And I'm just like, what? But now I've noticed it enough where if I make a silly mistake on something, I'll be like, oh, well, right? So I'll talk about how to shift that in a minute, but yeah, right? So what did I decide that this small mistake meant about me? This is where we can kind of start to shift the story and create a possibility from it. Okay? And do you see where I'm going? Like, I'm using terminology that we talk about when we do manifestation. Okay? So think about that just a little bit, like that aspect to this, right? So instead of saying, I'm an idiot, I can say, all is well. I'm fine. Oopsie. You know, you can say, so instead of saying all is well, you can say, oh, instead of saying I'm an idiot, I could say, oopsie, I made a little blunder, you know? So, or instead of saying, I always second guess myself, I could say, I'm practicing trusting myself. Okay? So, this new thought also too does not have to feel completely true. It just has to kind of create just that little bit more of a possibility. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now here's what we're doing. This is the simple sort of practice. Okay, so it's kind of a 3-step practice or process, I guess I should say. All right, what we do is we catch the story that we tell ourselves. Okay, and we talked about how to do that. Then we question the story of like, why would I say that? Okay, and then we reframe it, or we choose another option of how to deal with it. Okay, and you know, this may seem like I'm just, you know, talking things, but this is real life, you guys. Okay, we all do this, or a version of this. Okay, but most of us don't know that we can reframe the thought. Okay, so there's that. All right, now, so when you catch it, you're like, oh, there's that story again. Okay, and then you question it. Wait, is this absolutely true? Is what I'm saying true? What else could be true about this? Okay, that would be the questioning it. Okay, and then choosing something new. What thought would create more possibilities surrounding that? Okay, now let's have some examples. And if anybody wants to share some things going on, I would love it. If not, totally get it, right? Write some of this stuff down though, you guys. This is big, or this can be big. Okay. All right, so the examples. Let's get into some of these examples because they tend to be, they can be powerful. Okay, so the example number 1 is, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to do lives. Like, let's just say that you're a medium. Okay, but you're nervous to do a live. It's daunting to be here out on the internet where anybody could see you at any time, right? Okay. So I'm not good enough. Okay. Catching that. there's that story again. Oh, wait, maybe I'm not good enough. I just caught that. I just can't believe I just said that. Okay. Then you question it. Wait, is that true? Maybe I'm still learning. Maybe I'm actually more capable than I give myself credit for. Okay. Maybe there's maybes in there. That would be the questions. Okay. Then you get to choose how you rethink that. So instead of saying, I'm not good enough, what thought would create more possibility? I don't have to be perfect to be capable. Whoa. Now, when you think about the first thought of I'm not good enough, to reframing the thought of I don't have to be perfect to be capable. Whoa. Okay, right? Like that's like a big, huge kind of conversation, you know? Okay, so another example of this. And I wanted to give a lot of examples in this because it feels like, I shouldn't say it feels like, that's not true. I wanted to give examples of this because sometimes when you listen to one example, you might not get it, but then you listen to another example and you're like, oh my God, I can totally relate to that, right? So, okay. So here's example number 2. This is the thought, God, nothing ever works out for me. How many times have we said that to ourselves? Why doesn't anything work out for me? That is something. So catching it, nothing ever works out for me. Yeah, that is the story. Okay, and then when we start questioning it, you could say to yourself, well, maybe some things didn't work out for me because maybe I was being sort of redirected. Maybe there's something better coming along that's unfolding, and that's why it didn't work out. How many times, I don't know about you, but I've said that to myself, and then I've said, oh, maybe something better is coming down the pike, okay? And then we go to the place of choosing. What thought could we shift this to that would create more possibility, okay? So then the thing is, nothing ever works out for me, and we shift that to be, I don't know what's going to unfold, but I'm open to whatever is coming. Maybe something better is coming. Okay? Do you see how this is sort of borderlines on like manifesting? Okay? Because there's a part of this that actually is manifesting, because and I talk about this when I do manifestation courses. I talk about this because sometimes we don't realize we're saying this stuff to ourselves. That's why catching it is so important. Okay? And I say this in my book, I say this on lives. If you catch what you're saying, if you catch what you're saying and shift it, that is key. And I have to tell you, it has taken me years to do that. It's taken me years to catch all of and I'm sure that there are some I just don't catch, right? But, coming back to the idiot comment that I say to myself, what is up with that, right? Oh, well, that's kind of where my head goes. Okay, never mind. Okay, never mind. Oopsie. That's where my mind is going now. Okay? So, now, to bring this to a few points that I want you to keep in mind. Okay? First of all, releasing our old stories doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get rid of every single negative thought, because we're always going to have thoughts. We're humans. Okay? We got to go easy on ourselves sometimes. Okay? Doesn't mean we have to get rid of every single negative thing that we say about ourselves. Okay? Because It means solely that we need to stop giving every thought sort of the keys to the car. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it drives us. Okay, so now here's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, when we stop treating, and this is big, when we stop treating our stories as factual, that is when we create the space for something really special coming in. Okay? That's when we create the space for miracles. Okay? So when you take away some of those, when you catch some of those negative thoughts that you tell ourselves, like, oh, I look so fat today. If you catch yourself saying that, then you can shift the story. Maybe you don't look fat, maybe you just feel fat. Do you know what I'm saying? We create something new. Like you could say to yourself in terms of that, you could say to yourself, you know what? I feel confident though. You know what? Maybe it just means that you need to change your shirt. So, if your old story, this is such a great question. If your old story wasn't running the show, what do you think you would do differently? If your old story wasn't running your show, what do you think you'd do differently? Now, here's the thing. I'm too old to ride a horse. Well, what would I do differently? I would take away the fear of getting on a horse. I don't have a fear of getting on a horse, by the way, but I would take away the fear of getting on the horse. I would go past the fear and just get on the horse. Okay? Now, what might become possible if you stop assuming that you already knew how your story ends? Okay? So I already knew, and again, making this up, but I just felt like I'm too old to ride a horse. And that just takes that pressure off. Or why does my husband always feel like he needs to tell me what to do? Why does my husband make me feel like I'm not doing enough? Okay, that is not my story. I have a great husband. However, I do know people that say that to themselves. Okay, so that was the thought. Okay, that's the thought. That's the story, right? So the story, but then the question is, why is it that my husband has that power over me to make me feel like I'm not doing enough, like I'm not good enough? Okay? And then we think to ourselves, this is shifting that thought. Okay? What thought could create more possibility? So whenever I go back to the thought on that, shifting the thought of like, I'm doing great. It's him that has the problem. I'm doing fantastic. I feel good. I feel empowered in my life. If he has a problem with me, it's his problem, not mine. Did I ruffle feathers? Oh my gosh. Right? So what becomes possible for you if you stop assuming you already know how your story is going to end? You're going to feel bad. You're going to do laundry all night long because you feel bad, like you're not doing enough. No. You're going to go out and you're going to have your glass of wine. Okay. So I want to throw out the 3 parts of the takeaway. Catching the story, questioning the story, and shifting it, choosing a different way to speak it. Okay? Your old story may explain where you've been, but it does not have to determine where you are going. Doesn't that take pressure off? So, what I'd like to invite you to notice your stories this week without judging them, without judging yourself for having them. Okay? All right, now, okay, so to end this part, I guess I'll say it this way. If you could rewrite just one sentence in your story, what would it be? And I'm going to give you, I have all of these thoughts, right? And feel free to write them down in your journal or whatever, right? So these are like new ways of seeing yourself. I am open to seeing this situation differently. That's a great one, right? I am open. If you're open to a possibility, I mean, it's extraordinary to be open. Okay? Next one is, there is more possible than I can see right now. What if, I love my what ifs, right? What if, instead of saying I'm too old to get on a horse, I could turn it around to be, what if I got on a horse and I feel so much freedom that I end up getting a horse? And I can experience that freedom anytime I want. Right? Right. So there's a fun one on that. Okay. Another one that is great is, I don't have to believe every thought I think. And this is so huge. Like, I want you to think about that. I don't have to believe every thought that I think. Okay? Sometimes I will be doing lives, or I'll be, whatever, and I'll think to myself, what is going on? Why am I don't feel like I'm connecting, because, I'm a medium, obviously. So, I don't feel like I'm connecting. But guess what? I actually know that I connect. However, sometimes it comes to me in a different way. The energy comes to me in different ways all the time. So just because it's coming to me in a different way doesn't necessarily mean that I have to believe it. Do you know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense, So another little phrase that you can say to yourself, my past does not have to predict my future. And I can choose a thought that creates possibility. Love that. Love that. What if things could actually work out better than I imagined? I love that one because, I've been there on that one. Like, I'll think things are not working out the way I want them to. But what if things actually work out better because it wasn't going in the direction I thought it was going in, it went in that direction. Ooh. Okay. And here's another one. I release the need to know how and stay open to what's possible. Okay. Now, just a couple more, and then I'm going to give our card reading for the collective. Okay. Couple more. I choose thoughts that make room for miracles, because that's what it should be about. Our human life is a big fat miracle. Okay. And then the last one, and this is like, I love this one probably most of all. I don't have to figure everything out. I just have to be willing to believe something new is possible. All right. I want to say that one again because it's just sums it all up. I don't have to figure everything out. I just have to be willing to believe that something new is possible. I love that. I love that for all of us. I wish for you to take that on. We don't have to figure everything out. We try, but we don't have to. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little talk. All right, so now I am pulling a card, and I'm going to do a channeled reading for all of us. Channeled reading for all of us. All right. Let's see what it says. Oh, well, awesome. I love this. Okay, now look at the little fairy. First of all, the number is 14, if the number 14 means anything to you. The card is Harvest. And it says Autumn Garden. Okay. So what I love about the fact that I pulled this card right now is the fact that we are in a new time, right? Because we just had the eclipse. We're still in the glow of that energy. We've got the new moon. We've got all sorts of fun, let's see, how do I want to explain? We've got all sorts of astrological things going on, right? It's really, really an exciting time, okay? Now, what Spirit wants us to know, and this is where I'm going to close my eyes, what Spirit wants us to know is that this is just the time for finding the new and harvesting and like learning all the new stuff and taking all the stuff that we've learned and utilizing it. However, we can do that any day that we choose. We can create new things for ourselves every single day. We can be a better version of ourselves every single day if we choose. Oh, I'm like tingling. Life teaches us that every day new things are happening, whether they are good or bad or whatever. And we get to choose how we respond to all those things. Oh, what a beautiful way to end this. What a great card for ending it this way, So there you go. Thank you guys for being here. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And there we have it. Everybody have a great evening, and namaste to you all. And thanks for being here. Take care. Bye. Thanks for hanging out in the Spirit Room. Now go shine your light, trust your vibe, and remember to tell someone that you love them today. Namaste.